Hey everyone, welcome to the Cool Table. I'm Beth. This is Heidi. Say hi.
Hi guys.
And you're here for what I'm considering, even though we don't have seasons, this is the first in our 2021 fall season of stuff that we do live at the Cool Table. So welcome to the Bridgerton Book Club. It's going to be episode 1 of our new season. Yay!
Yay. This has been on the list for a long time. We've been needing to talk about Polin for a while.
Oh, for forever. In fact, if you are new to the Cool Table, hello. We have a YouTube channel. We have a Twitter feed. We have a website where we talk about all of this stuff. But if you go back to older Bridgerton book clubs, the very first one that we did, it was over a year ago on The Duke and I. And we did Anthony's book almost exactly a year ago. It was August of 2020.
I remember someone in the comments on YouTube was complaining about how much I touched my face because of COVID. They're like, no, you're going to get COVID. And I was like, I never leave my house. How am I going to get COVID? We're in lockdown. This is a very different time.
How do you not touch your face at home? I don't know. Alicia just said, Beth, I shouldn't put compliments on myself up, but I'm going to. That yellow looks gorgeous on you. Thank you. I'm wearing it for Penelope. This is for Penelope and her former self or whatever. But hi, Shelly, Alicia, Brett. So glad to see you guys. Hey, Sheila. Say hi to us in the chat if you're here on YouTube or Facebook. I don't think I put this on Periscope because I got kind of sick of that one for some reason. But anyway, hello. Also, we're on TikTok now, and I'm excited to be in that space. So go follow us. Jody, hi, my friend Jody is here. Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. I hope you still like Colin's story after this book club. We aren't always nice.
It would be boring if we were, though. Extremely boring if we were nice the whole time.
Yes, it would. I mean, we will be nice. There's lots of things to say that are nice, but also, and this is in no way as bad as Benedict's book. So it's one up there already. We did not like Benedict's book. If you want to go back and watch that one, it's not good. Not a good time. But before we get started tonight, I wanted to say we are definitely separating out the different aspects of Polin's book because it has more than one thing happening in it. There is obviously the Lady Whistledown reveal is the huge part of this book, and it makes you feel certain things, and that's one thing. And then there is the romance between Colin and Penelope and how it develops. And then there's Colin and Penelope themselves. I feel like this book has three distinct things: how it fits in with the rest of the Bridgerton universe, the Whistledown thing, and then how Colin and Penelope are portrayed in this novel. So let's get started with one of those aspects. Alicia just said Benedict is the worst. Yes, he is. And I just wanted to thank Alicia again for giving us Benedict and letting us use it.
A classic. Instant classic.
Total classic. So overall, how do you feel about this book? Where does it fit in your feelings about the Bridgerton universe or the Bridgerton couples? And, where does it fit in your ranking?
Oh, in my ranking. I think this one would fall. I haven't read Gregory's or Hyacinth's yet. I've been holding out on them because I want to experience them kind of in real time. So taking those two out of the mix, I think I would rank this one maybe third, fourth.
Oh, that's third. That's high. Third is high. Fourth is average.
Yeah, I think it would be Francesca's number one. Anthony's number 2 for me, and then third would be Polin, and then Benedict's at the bottom down there, and Eloise is pretty far down there too.
Yeah, Benedict and Eloise are my least favorite, but I put Daphne and Simons before I put Colin and Penelope.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about them. No, I think I would put them below Penelope and Colin.
That's normal too. People feel that way too, because this one is less problematic than Daphne and Simon's book. But I think that Daphne and Simon's book works better, trope wise.
Sure.
And I think that Simon
has everyone beat by a mile especially compared to Colin.
It's different because in half the books we have Bridgerton men, and that's a category all on its own. And then the other half of the books, there are the Bridgerton ladies who meet other men, and they have their own set of like, you know, qualities that make them better or worse. And Simon, Michael, they rank really high for me in terms of heroes, and sometimes higher than the Bridgerton men themselves. This ranked in my hierarchy of the Bridgerton, the first eight novels. This one is 5th for me, which is very low, I think, and very kind of surprising. It didn't used to. It used to be like my second favorite. But Gregory's doesn't beat it, but Hyacinth's definitely does. Daphne's is better for me. And then also Anthony, and then of course Francesca's, which is the ultimate. But it's the only ones below this one for me are Eloise and Benedict. And I didn't used to be that way, but I reread it and I just
my reread was rough as well. My reread was, I think this is the 3rd time I've read it, and I just finished it like maybe 3 minutes before we put go on this one. And I was texting you last night, like, has he always been such a man child? Like, I did not catch that the first 2 times. At least it didn't bother me quite as much. And maybe that's after a year and a half of being in a home with my husband.
Yeah. So. Before we get into what we dislike and do like about Colin, Shelley said Benedict's book made her want to flip a table, and this one didn't. So that's a win. Yes. Alicia says that Colin is tied with Hyacinth for her 2nd place. Ties are against the rules. Pick one, Alicia. Thank you. No, that's not unusual. I think that a lot of people really like Hyacinth's book, and they really like Colin's book as well. But she said Eloise and Benedict are also her least favorite. Simon and Daphne are her 2nd least. And I mean, Daphne is incredibly problematic. So got problematic stuff in it. So that's not unusual. And Brett said, I am torn when it comes to Colin. He's a free spirit and also annoying versus the other leading men. So let's get into Colin. Before we get any farther, our friend Julie made a TikTok this week about how Colin is the best of the Bridgerton men. Now remember, the Bridgerton men is that there's only a foursome to choose from. And she said it is because of the line where they are first having sex, which is the only sex scene in the book, which is a problem with the book itself, but not a problem with Colin necessarily. And he says, I want to do it in front of a mirror. So Colin being like body positive is the reason that she thinks that Colin is great. I did like that scene.
Yeah, I mean, I liked that scene too. I think all of the things that lead to Penelope becoming like her full self, because she was already such an interesting person, but then also coming to accept herself as like a sexual wanted woman, like all of those things that led to that part of her character development are great. I just don't know that Colin was always thinking about Penelope when he said those things. I think Colin was always thinking about Colin just because he's so immature. I will say in this book, like Penelope, if I was picking female characters, Penelope is up there as like one of my favorite female characters. She is great. She's great. And I'm happy that she got, the man she's wanted since she was 17 or 16 years old, and like fairy tale came around. I love that. That's a great trope.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wish she didn't have to turn him into a grown-ass man.
Yeah. So Colin bothers me for a couple of reasons, and we've hinted at it. I feel like Colin is, yes, very much a man-child. And in the universe of the Bridgerton world, and not necessarily in this book, that is endearing. It's cute that Colin comes in and always wants cake. It's adorable that Colin is always like making a joke. He's always smirking. He even does it in the show with, Eloise trying to figure out how babies are made. And he and Benedict are just like, they can't contain themselves. Like the running away from his mother. There's just a lot of that going on for Colin. It's very adorable. And also in the show, he's a little serious, but in the books, nothing really gets to Colin. He is very unserious. And Penelope talks about it a lot in the book, how he's very charming and how this is like just who he is. He seems unflappable. He seems like he always is in a good mood. And it is one of the reasons that she falls in love with him. He falls into a mud puddle, but he doesn't yell at her. He just laughs it off. And he's like, wow, I'm an idiot. And it's so charming that she falls in love immediately. And yet, in their book, Colin gets less and less charming.
Mm-hmm.
And I always have to sit back and go, okay, am I enamored with that? Is that is that more like realistic, that he would be upset about things and he's not unflappable and she's just learning who he is? Or am I like, is he not great anymore? Is it like, what is left of his personality if he's not kind of this like boyish?
I think though that part of it was that his character was being developed also. Like he was realizing as a 33-year-old man that he didn't have to be the one that was always happy, that made things easy, that always made things light, that had to run away from his problems. I kept being brought to mind the oldest brother in the Corfu, the Durrells in Corfu. Like he reminds me so much of Colin, like just kind of like the writer. He's like always out to have a good time and different women and escaping his problems. And whenever real things happen, he doesn't have the bandwidth or the emotional intelligence to know how to deal with them. And so I appreciated that she was giving us a reason to see like his emotional intelligence and that growth. But I didn't like that it always came out in like a temper or in a way of being angry with someone else. Like just deal with your own shit. Like stop putting on everyone else that you have to deal with your emotional, incapacity. It's your job to figure this out. You're 33 years old. Figure it out. Yeah.
Brett just said, as we progress through the book, he falls into a complete mantram, which is another great term. And all of the Bridgerton men kind of have this same issue where they've never had any adversity. It reminds me of that quote from Andy from The Office, where he's like, I forget what he's even talking about. And he says, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. I haven't had a very hard life. And that's what the Bridgerton men remind me of. There's nothing is ever bad. I mean, their dad died. Okay. Yeah. Anthony's dealing with his trauma in that particular moment. But the rest of them, they're just like, their lives are so easy that the slightest bit of, any kind of adversity and they fall apart. But they all, like Benedict does the same thing. He goes directly to anger.
Yeah.
And it's so immature.
And it's really unself-aware. Like if they had those moments and then they were self-aware enough to be like, oh my God, I'm being an idiot, which he does a couple of times. I mean, by the end, he definitely does that. But those moments don't come enough to make him endearing in the moments. Like I'm just was mad at him. Like, why are you being so petulant?
Yeah. B said he gets less reliably adorable when she gets under his skin and he drops the public facade.
Yeah.
And that's very true. I mean, a lot of it is just the fact that we're getting Penelope's view of what he's doing. He's not doing it out in public. And it is like how he's relating to, oh my goodness, these stronger feelings that I'm having are not something I'm used to. He's never been in love before. He's never really let a woman get under his skin this way before. And so a lot of it is just him kind of dealing with totally new things.
Yeah.
But the way that it reads when you're reading a romance novel is that the hero is not the good guy that the girl thought he was. And she's even feeling that. She's like, wow, he's not who I thought he was. And it kind of sucks. Because how many romance novels have you read where the guy handles very similar things and he's a jokester and he's fun and he's quippy and he stays that way? He doesn't get like super mad. I just wonder if Julia was like in some way not ready or not capable of giving them inner turmoil or inner like conflict between the hero and the heroine that would move them forward in a way that wasn't just him getting mad at her, putting herself in danger. Like she goes off to that church or whatever and he's like super mad and he takes the paper and he rips it open. I'm like, boundaries, bud. Like you have there's no boundaries there for you. I just don't understand why that isn't something that she's capable of doing. She's the exact same thing with Benedict. It's like the parallels between the way Benedict acts and the way Colin acts in this one are very, very similar.
It's like they have never experienced human emotion other than bliss. And then as soon as it hits them, they're like Ariel walking on land for the first time. It's just like jelly legs. They don't know how to even handle it. Yeah. I will say, though, the idea of the public facade where B said that he got less reliably adorable, Penelope gets more reliably adorable as her public facade becomes her more real self. So it was an interesting parallel between the two of them, because as he became more his real self, it was like, oh God, what did everyone see in this guy? Other than that he's attractive and rich and he travels sometimes, versus Penelope, where she, through Lady Danbury, becomes just so confident and sure of herself and unafraid, which was just, that part was great.
Yeah. Let's talk about Penelope a little bit, because she's easily one of the best heroines of the entire series. I do happen to have a soft spot for Hyacinth, and I really love Kate. But Penelope is easily one of the best. And is it the Lady Whistledown aspect to Penelope that makes her so great, or is it beyond that?
I think for me, it's the wallflower trope of someone who is truly not just like, I mean, this was written 20 years ago. I think if they were written today, she wouldn't lose the 20 stone after, her first year coming out. Like, she wouldn't have to have that beauty come out 1 year later where suddenly she's thinner and therefore more attractive. I think that would go the wayside, which it should on the show. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's the wallflower. Like, she's not attractive, like everyone says. Like, she's just not. Like, she's dressed badly, she's rounder than is in fashion, and I think what's attractive about it is that she finds her way despite at no point even thinking like, I mean, she wants to be popular, but she knows she's not going to be. And so I think that's what makes her attractive, is like, she's a true wallflower. We jump, what is it, 11 years, 12 years, where she's just, no one wants her for 12 years. It's not like she's being picky like Eloise. No one wants her. Yeah. That's rough.
That is rough. I actually kind of hate that it's 11 or 12 years from her first coming out to like, even like her first falling in love with Colin and like pining for him for 12 years. Like, I recognize that it's great that we have a Regency romance where the heroine is 28 years old, and that is great because usually they're like 20 and it's so annoying. But something about that amount of time of pining and that amount of loneliness just makes me feel like, oh, poor Penelope. Like, there's just something that's just too much for me. But Alicia just said that's a part of the beauty of them. We have these ideas of who they're going into it, and then we see them with one another and realize they're seeing those hidden parts of themselves in the other. And that's very true. Yes. It wouldn't be a good novel if Penelope was fully self-assured and Penelope fully knew herself and fully felt like she deserved the world, and then she got it. Mm-hmm. And likewise with Colin, for him to be the perfect, charming, insouciant, like little schoolboy with the funny quips and the perfect thing to say all the time. And he never lost any of that before he realized that he was in love with her. So yes, them growing together is part of what makes it good. I love Penelope because, yes, the full-on wallflower trope is super fun. It's satisfying to watch. It's satisfying to watch a popular guy fall in love with a wallflower. That's a trope for a reason. And also because I love an observant, quippy bitch. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Lady Whistledown has been skewering people for a decade in ways that are honest and real, and they overemphasize how she does it to the bad people and not any of the good people, except for their clothing. And I find that a little heavy-handed. Like, surely she said some shit about some people that were, also shit on. But I love the idea that she's capable of being caustic and bitchy in a way that impressed other people. That's like my dream job. Like, she made a career out of being like a snotty bitch. I love it.
I had I just remembered it. I don't think I've thought about it in years. In 7th grade, I had an advice column. But I would have my friends, oh God, this is so terrible. I would have my friends write in questions as if they were other people in our school, just to be bitchy.
Did they sign the other person's name to it?
We would use initials. We weren't quite as brave as Mrs. Whistledown, but we used their initials. Yes. God, that was so mean.
That is mean. That's very mean. Oh, but I'm down for it. I love it. I think that's great. I love anonymity in literature as well. Like, I've told this story before, but the front cover of my literary magazine when I was a senior was this horrific take on the singing Christmas tree at the biggest church in our city. And I let the person who wrote it do it anonymously. And then I got kicked off the literary magazine as the editor. But anyway, Brett just said Pretty much anyone who is in lockstep with Lady Danbury is golden. Yes, absolutely.
She's so good in this book. Lady Danbury is everything in this book.
She's great in all of them. It's why Hyacinth's book is also so good.
Oh, okay. I haven't read that one yet, like I said. Yeah. But and picturing the actress who plays her from the show and this was made it so much better than picturing this like little old wizened white lady. For some reason, picturing her with the cane, it made it so good.
Yes, it makes it so much better. She is so well cast because Lady Danbury, before when I read these, I'd read 3 of them before. And in my mind, you're just thinking Maggie Smith from Downton Abbey. Like that's who she is. And the casting in the show just gives Lady Danbury such an amazing edge because she's not like this. She's not a crone, she's just the best. But yeah, Hyacinth's book, Hyacinth marries Lady Danbury's grandson.
Oh, so good.
Yes, it's very, very good.
Oh, I can't wait now.
Yeah. But yeah, I love Penelope's ability to just like see the truth, write it down, get it out there. Like, and her and Eloise's relationship and how they work with one another off of that. Yeah. It's just super good. It's why she's one of the best. And at the same time, most people can't hold that stuff back. And the fact that she's capable of just like schooling her resting bitch face to just continue to be the wallflower, continue to be like the ugly duckling in the corner and not come out with what it is she wants to say. I guess I admire the dichotomy. Like I can't do that. I'm going to just say it. So I admire that she can do both of those things.
I think a lot of that comes from her family and the way that they have treated her. And so she is able to see them for who they are while also loving them, while also being abused by them, while also loving them. And it's like that balance that happens in this kind of abusive relationships. And so I think that's what it is. Like she sees the truth of who they are. She's probably not going to say to her mom's face, like, you're treating me awfully. And this became her outlet, writing about other people. It's so good.
So at one point in the book, she tells, or she thinks, she doesn't say out loud, but when Cressida comes and blackmails her, she thinks in her head, okay, she has like 8,200 pounds or something like that in her little account. And that is, I did like the, inflation rate, and it's something close to like £1 million.
Yeah. I did the same thing today. I Googled it today also because I was so curious.
It's like what they say, like around 800 or something like that, 800,000. And she's given some of it away already or whatever. She already pretended it was her aunt's money. So she probably made that was like after the first 4 years. So she probably made almost twice that in that amount of time. So she is a legit boss babe. She's the real entrepreneur. She's not an MLM. It's really her. Is there any other, any other Bridgerton women who are out there just like making their way in the world?
No, not Bridgerton women. No.
Yeah.
Good.
Really awesome. Alicia just said, honestly, Eloise could have been a better friend to Penelope. I always found it odd that Eloise doesn't know that Penelope is in love with Colin.
Yeah, I think Eloise was pretty self-absorbed in all of it. And I mean, you've seen this show, like the Duff, like the designated ugly fat friend. Like, I think that was their dynamic. Like, she loves Penelope, but Penelope's always going to be Penelope. So you can safely put her in a box, and Eloise can be eccentric and all of these things, and Penelope will always just be there. I think she could have been a better friend. Sure.
Yeah, she even says at one time, like, she thinks that there's no way that Penelope would, she just always thought she was going to be single. Like she was always just going to be there when she, even if Eloise wasn't. And at the same time, Eloise, spoiler alert, is planning to run away and go get married. It sucks. It sucks of her. But yeah, I mean, the idea that she could not figure out that even when they were 17, even when it's probably much harder for Penelope to hide her feelings and all of that, for her to not recognize that Penelope is in love with the brother she's closest to is just very odd to me.
I mean, I don't have an older brother, but I imagine like all of your friends at some point when you have an older brother have a crush on them. I mean, you would think, especially a rich, good-looking one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely remember having crushes on friends' older brothers for sure. And they all knew. It was pretty obvious. Alicia just said, Eloise was just expecting Penelope to be a happy spinster like she is, but she doesn't recognize Penelope isn't choosing this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but
Brett
Eloise
said,
came from a position of privilege on that, just like
yes.
Colin does. Like all the Bridgertons come from such like this happy position of privilege that Penelope just doesn't have.
Yeah. And then Brett said, Pen is pretty tricky. She's used to hiding her clandestine behavior. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And Eloise is totally self-absorbed, which she is in this book, and she probably was in earlier books, and she is a little bit in the show because she's doing that whole Lady Whistledown thing for Lady Danbury. But they've spent 10 years on the shelf. They have spent 10 years either out looking for husbands, Eloise rejecting suitors, and Penelope not having any. And they've spent the last few years, like not even really trying. They don't have to have chaperones to go anywhere anymore. They're just together. And for her to be that kind of unaware what has she had to be self-absorbed about? You know, it just seems like, it seems unrealistic to me that two female friends who have nothing else in terms of Penelope's got Lady Whistledown and they, have their own families and all that stuff. But if they're that close and they spend as much time together as these women do, the fact that Eloise has no clue what Penelope's really doing behind the scenes just seems inaccurate.
It's not like they had the internet to waste their time on. They had literally nothing else to do but to sit around and talk.
Oh yeah. Penelope's like, her friend, she's like, well, I embroider sometimes. Like they don't have anything to do. It's so sad. Speaking of nothing to do, once the Lady Whistledown reveal happens and Colin is mad and she's giving it up and they get engaged. What is going on? Like Penelope does nothing at this point. Like how in the world does this woman who has literally got £1 million, she's done all of this stuff, she's been at the forefront of what's going on, how is it that she becomes the editor of her husband's travel journals? And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I know. She loses herself a little bit in her marriage by the end of it. She really loses herself in it. I mean, part of that is like she's so happy to be seen and I think she said she finds herself in him. She finds herself in the way that he describes her as beautiful. She finds herself in being desirable. And it's sad because she was already so much and she is so much. And so I wish that could have had a little more of a balance there at the end.
Yeah. Like as she's coming into herself where she's able to say the things that she wants to say, why does she then have to kind of back away and just be Colin's wife? I understand even in writing a book like that, where the impetus is this woman has wanted this man her entire life and she finally got him and she finally is going to be accepted by the society that has treated her like shit. She gets to relax and be just a Bridgerton wife.
Sure.
Like she gets to just be Colin Bridgerton's wife for a while and relish in that that's what she is.
I didn't read it that way though. I didn't read that way.
It doesn't read that way. It could have.
Yeah.
But her inner life is not that. It's like she's constantly assuaging Colin's feelings instead of relishing in her new, this is who I am now. I'm going to go get nice clothes. I'm going to go be and do what I want to do. And so, I mean, and I think that maybe some people would read Penelope like they wouldn't like her anymore if she got to kind of just sit and be that. But I think assuaging his feelings is not really fun either. And I would much rather see her just be like, this is who I am now.
Yeah. And I'd be interested. I think in the epilogue, it does say like she starts writing her own book. And so maybe after he comes out in public at the very end and accepts her for who she is in public, that maybe that'll happen. But those few scenes in there where she's like putting extra jam on her scone because she's got such anxiety and she's hiding who she is because he's so jealous of her that she has to hide who she is. Those scenes are really sad because she thinks she's got everything and that's not everything.
Yeah. It's kind of one of the strange bits about Regency in that they have to get married before they have the regular relationship rocks.
Right.
And so then as modern people reading it, you're like, holy shit, get your shit together. Like, how have you not said I love you already? How have you not talked about how you really feel about her writing? Like, and it's because they're still in literal honeymoon stages of a relationship. And so for us, it looks like that's such a horrible marriage. Who would want to be in that? They should have gotten all their shit together, but they didn't have time because it's Regency. They had to get married before they could kind of work through it.
I did love when she offered him pin money, though.
Yeah, that's cute.
That's so good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say the one scene that I absolutely adored in this whole book was whenever he walks in and he's going to ask Mrs. Featherington for her hand in marriage. And that whole like farcical, but every Featherington sister is trying to get Penelope to come out. They're trying to get Penelope to order food. They're trying to get Felicity to get her watercolors. And the whole time Felicity is just like, guys are idiots. He does not want me. That scene is so good. And I cannot wait to see those actresses perform that scene. It's going to be so good.
Yeah. That scene just needs to get pulled directly from the pages and put on screen exactly how it is. It's so good. Of course, I don't know how they're going to do that because they don't have Felicity. But yes, absolutely. That scene is pitch perfect the way that it's written. I love it.
Do you think they could introduce her later? Like she's been in the nursery or something? Like Hyacinth wasn't in the movie all that much. Could they? Maybe not.
Maybe, but we did get like internal Featherington life, and Marina was there. And, I think that if there had been like a 10-year-old Featherington sister, we would have been introduced to her already. So, but maybe we do have the end of the season 1 is some kind of foreshadowing who's going to be there in the Featherington household that's not in the books, somebody who's inheriting their estate. Yeah. And that could be how they introduce somebody like Felicity, which would be interesting.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that scene is so good. And I actually really love the lead up to that scene. So the entire scene, other than him like literally just taking her correspondence and opening it and like having no boundaries, him following her to the church, her doing her thing with her sneaky spy publisher stuff, and then just like collapsing on the steps of the church and waiting for him to come out and being like, I'm just going to have to wait for him to come rescue me and take me home. And then them getting and having the fight and like doing all of that and then making out to the point where he's like, as he steps out of the carriage, are you going to marry me or not? It's actually a really, really great scene. Just the entire buildup and the way that it works out. It's sexy. It's fun. You feel good for Penelope. You want it to happen. She's so shocked. It's just really, really great. It's really satisfying.
And he's shocked too. It's like it all happens so fast that they just are both like, oh, this is happening right now. I do wish though that he didn't always, I think every time they have any sort of intimate interaction, he's mad at her first. He was really mad. Like he's mad at her before they like that turns into passion.
Yeah.
Which I mean, maybe because he's so emotionally stunted, he doesn't have any other way of processing his emotions.
I don't know. I feel like it's something that Julia Quinn does a lot. She does it with Anthony. I think that happens in The Duke and I, and it definitely happens in Benedict's book.
Yeah.
I mean, there's almost a scene for scene thing where he traps Sophie in a room, is mad at her, is like yelling at her, trying to hurt her, and then they end up like having sex. So it's definitely like a way that Julia Quinn ramps up to intimacy, which is very weird. It's not necessarily how it has to happen.
Not always.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if that's the case. I feel like it's not the case in Francesca's book, which is probably why I like it so much, and not in Hyacinth's either. Or Gregory's. Hyacinth's book has like no angst. It's pure fluff.
Eloise's book has it though. Eloise's book has a ton of angst. Yeah.
And a ton of like dude being pissed before they're intimate.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I haven't if B's still in the chat, like you're our resident like Julia Quinn scholar, like let us know if that's the case. But Alicia just said the carriage scene was hotter than their actual sex scene. I thought they were both pretty hot. I mean, I think they were both like good scenes. I think their sex scene is hot.
And I think I liked the sex scene that it was like in his childhood bedroom that she had never dared to walk in. And he just like, that was good. Like if like my high school crush, if that had worked out and I was in his like childhood bedroom, do you know, my brain would have exploded. So good.
What would have been cool, I think, in this novel in like just a narrative way would have been if we had seen a bunch of different moments where in Penelope's life, Colin has been the man that she's fallen in love with. We get the first one in the prologue, but then like sporadically throughout the different ways, which not just that Colin rescued her at dances. They mention that enough. And we know that that's happened enough from the other novels for it not to be interesting. But imagine like smaller moments where she's staying with Eloise at Bridgerton House and she walks past Colin's bedroom and she sees him like in dishabille or something like that. And she kind of freaks out. Just like little moments that then are mirrored in something that's happening to them in the real time or in the present time. How cool would that have been? Like, and then there would have been less of time for Colin to be such a grump. I don't know. B just did say she can't think right now. I don't blame you, but I think it's less of that in the prequels. I think that it's a kind of this book is 20 years old kind of thing. How long are we going to use that excuse, B?
Especially that was 2001. Like it wasn't that long ago. 2001, I was a senior in high school.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's historical Regency writers in the early aughts were not really writing like feminist Regency like they do now. But it does lend it. It's just so much of it. And it feels like it's almost every one of these novels has the same kind of, pattern to it. Could do without it.
Going back to what you were saying about like if we had little vignettes of their past interactions, I think I would have enjoyed if Colin had noticed her on some level also. Not necessarily in an attractive way, but like she's clever or she's funny or I like being around her, or he's a pubescent boy and gets turned on by her, but is like, oh, that's weird. Like that's like anything instead of just being shocked. Like, oh, she has pretty eyes that I've never noticed. I just don't know that attraction works like that in real life. Like, I don't know that I've ever looked at someone and suddenly been like, oh, now I find them attractive after 12 years of seeing them every day. Maybe it does.
Yeah. I mean, I do remember having like, when I was like 15, having somebody tell me that they like stopped me and they were like, are you going to date this guy? And I was like, what are you talking about? We're just friends. And he was like, no, really, you like him. And I was like, no, I don't. And he was like, we have been watching movies for weeks and you're in his lap. You're laying all over him. You're attracted to him. And I was like, no, I'm not. And then I was like, oh, maybe I am. But I had no idea that I was attracted to this person, despite the fact that I was comfortable enough with him to like literally lay all over him while we watched movies at my friend's house and had been doing it for months. And had no idea.
But that would have been so good from him. Like, oh my God, I've been spending all of this time with her and I love being around her and she makes me laugh. Like, oh, that's what this was the whole time. Yeah. That would have been really good.
I mean, although I think guys are a little bit more aware if they're attracted to a person than like a 15-year-old girl who was I was like, what? He's just really comfy. Like, that was it.
I'm just rubbing up on his lap while watching movies. What are you talking about?
I had no idea. I'm not even kidding. I did not think I liked this boy. But yeah, I think it would have been fun to see, yes, exactly what you're saying. Colin having moments where it's not that that he's just pitying Penelope, or, I mean, and there were cute lines like he was, when he was telling her later, he was like, we like you and I'm polite. Like, I didn't just pity you. Like there are sweet moments where he says things about her from the past, but it would have been cool to see some of those moments and then for them also to mean a little bit more.
Right.
Way more than just this is Eloise's like friend that we can kind of ignore, but we also kind of like. It's just really sad. It's really sad for her to be holding a torch for that long and get nothing in return.
And plus that scene on this doorstep where she walks out and hears him say, like, I don't want to marry her. It's awful. It's
the worst. It's really, really awful. And I did not realize, I said this before when it's in Benedict's book, how horrible it is from that perspective. I had only read it from Penelope's perspective in this book first. And both of those together, just the worst. Yeah. So bad. So yeah, we needed a little bit more from Colin, because it does kind of feel like he's proposing to her because of her station and what he has done in the carriage, and not a genuine attraction to who she is or to her as a person. So, that hurts a little bit. And Alicia just said, I don't think Colin had the opportunity for that because his mom was so busy shoving her on him. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. It's a different world. And, if he would have shown any kind of interest in her, it would have been really frustrating in that way. Shelley just said, I wanted the Featherington mom to get more of a comeuppance for her treatment of Penn, and instead she got a good chunk of Penn's money.
That's true.
Well, I think at the time, Penelope thought that was just going to be her money. Like that was what she was going to have to, she was living on it. So it wasn't just that she was giving it to her mom. It was, if I want to be able to use this, I'm going to have to give it to my mom.
If I want to get out of these orange and yellow dresses, I'm going to have to up the budget a little bit.
Yes. But yeah.
That quote over there from Brett about Colin's writing, where she said, do we care about Colin's writing apart from pen editing? The only thing I want to say about that is that when he was writing about like an Englishman in Scotland, he is writing every Outlander fan's trip to Scotland. Like that was it. Pay your respects to Culloden, do this and this. Like it was straight up like the like journey of Jamie Fraser.
Yeah. So although funny. I think if you're in the Highlands, you cannot avoid somebody telling you to go to Culloden and go through Inverness. Like you just don't have an option. Like those are the only places to go. But yeah, it did feel like a little Jamie Fraser fanfic going on. Although I did not read Colin's writing, especially like this is the third time I've read that book. I just like no.
I listened to it this last time because I was at grocery shop. I was at Costco today, so I had it in my ears. I was listening to it on 2.5, trying to hurry through the reread. And the reader does all these different accents, and so she did a full-on Scottish accent while she was reading it, and it was actually really entertaining whenever I read it like that.
Yeah, but as soon as it got into italics and it was like 4 pages of his journal, I was like, no.
And she was so impressed with his metaphor about warm baths. Like, oh, you thought to compare the ocean to a warm bath. Who would do that?
It was like Julia Quinn was giving us all like a writing assignment and then grading us on it. That's what it felt like. Like she'd given us all a writing assignment and then she told us what was good about it. Thanks. Thanks, Miss Quinn. Yeah, I didn't care about any of that. And I don't care that he published his works. Like his legacy, really, like you're going to have a really nice white marble bust of yourself in the piano room of, Kilmartin House or Bridgerton House until 2020 when I visit London. It's going to be there. I'm going to see it. You don't need more than that. You're going to have children and they're going to, marry cousins of the royal family. This is not, you don't need
I spent a lot of time Googling like in Google Images looking up like what square are they not Mayfair, but what's the square that they're in? Bedford Square, Square, Bedford Square. And it's so beautiful. And you can even look at number 5 Bedford. You can see the whole thing. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Everything is, I mean, they're talking about Mayfair or like Marylebone or what, I don't even know how do you say all of that. But I'm like, yeah, that's all a ridiculous amount of real estate. So good for them. Good for your ridiculous amount of money. But yeah. How do we feel about Colin and Penelope as a couple in the Bridgerton universe?
I like them. Where do they fall though?
Well, I mean, how do you feel about them in general too?
I like them together. I feel like that they probably are a good balance to each other. Like he's going to give her the public persona and popularity that she's never been able to have on her own, that she's always wanted, and the love that she's always wanted. And she will give him purpose, and which she's always needed. But when I think of the Bridgertons, as far as like where they fall, and I always think of the Pall Mall games and where they would fall in that. And so that's what I love is remembering how Penelope would sit on the side being like, oh, these idiots, like just let's watch them play, while Colin was egging everybody on. And I just think that's a really fun addition to the family. And I'm glad that she gets to go there and not spend all of her time taking care of Mama Featherington.
Yes. I like the fact that she gets to be a Bridgerton. And I just like their dynamic. I like the fact that she's not only already part of the family, she's Eloise's, best friend, and she's just there. But I love that Colin is, a scamp and remains a scamp well into his like 40s and 50s. And she remains like a caustic bitch on the side, like just kind of muttering under her breath. I
wish that they became, instead of like parents, which I guess they don't have birth control, they wanted to be parents or whatever. But I wish they had become like the cool people who just traveled all over the world together. And she got to be a woman of the world, and he got to be the man who like gave her the world when no one else could do it. I wish that had been their ending.
Yeah. In the end of the book, when he whisks her away from that balcony and they leave immediately, does he take her somewhere immediately? Do they go out of town?
Oh, I was listening to it so fast. I don't remember.
I mean, I've just finished it this morning, but I in my mind, that's what he was doing. He was doing the while you were sleeping thing where they immediately leave. They make this grand gesture and then they go to Italy.
Maybe.
And he should have, but I don't think he did. Like, he should have whisked her away from that balcony and gotten on a train, and they should have gone to Italy because, she's going to be pregnant right away.
Yeah.
Come on, Colin.
And it would have proven how much he doesn't care, because one of the reasons they hadn't gone on the honeymoon yet is because he was so scared of it coming out. He had to be there to tamp down all the rumors, and doing that would have proven, like, I told everyone, I don't give a shit. Let's go live our life together because all I care about is you. Yeah.
Yes. See? So much better. It would have been so much better. Instead, she's editing his journals in the epilogue. My God.
An Englishman in Italy, an Englishman in Scotland.
It's like a werewolf in London. That's what it made me think of. As soon as I looked at it, I was like,
I just always think of the oldest brother. And I just always think of the Durrells in Corfu. That's who he is to me.
Yeah. If you haven't watched the Durrells in Corfu, it is peak, like so just like super calming, super fun, very funny, very worth watching show on PBS. So go do it. But yeah, that is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. Can't think of anything else to say. I'm very much looking forward to their romance on the show.
I need that season to be made. And I would be fine with skipping Benedict's. He can go off and do whatever he needs to do and go straight into Penelope and Colin next season. That would be or the next season. That would be good.
I think they're going to have to marry Anthony and Kate with something else happening, whether it's Francesca meeting her first husband and Michael in this season. Oh, we should look and see if anybody's been cast.
Oh, that'd be so good.
That happens concurrently with Benedict's story. So and that's not long enough after Kate and Anthony. So like next season could be Benedict and part of Francesca's, but like we're not going to wait forever for Eloise and all of that. So I don't know how it's going to work out, but surely they're going to try to do all of the books. It's way too, popular and successful not to. And I trust
when you
them
have
completely.
When you have the Kardashians posting about the group texts about the Bridgertons, like it's over. You're filming all of it.
Yes. Although my eyes are absolutely 100% peeled for Michael and his casting. I don't even care who it is. I just want them to tell me who it is so I can fall in love with him immediately. That's all I need. It doesn't have to be anybody in particular. Just do it so I can then be obsessed with him. Thank you. Yeah. Anytime. I'm waiting because you've been great at casting so far. I am the only casting I remember being upset with was the opera singer.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Something about her just didn't sit right with me. But other than that, I'm very happy with all the casting choices. So I trust them very much.
Me too. They've done a really good job adapting the stories.
I'm very excited. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. And keep your eyes peeled. We'll be talking about some more books very soon. It's been very fun.
It always is.
It always is. Bye. Love to Polin and Colin and Penelope and their many hilarious brood of children that they have. Gonna go take this dress off because it doesn't fit anymore.
That's what happens, man. COVID
hit. Penelope lost a stone and I gained one.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. All right. Good night, guys.
Bye.